So, good afternoon. Welcome to the latest webinar from the Training and Manufacturing Group. My name's Neil Lloyd and I'm the co-chair of the group. This week's webinar is from our technical partner In-Comm Training Services, Paul Hodgetts. Paul, nice to have you on board for this afternoon.
Thank you.
Before I do hand over though, I just want to remind everybody about the Training Manufacturing Group and what we're here to do. So if I just share my screen. So the group's been in existence now for a good few years, and we're a consortium of like-minded companies. There's about 140, 150 businesses that are in the group, and we're delivering, as it says, world-class advanced engineering skills and business support strategies. We're a non-profit organisation and exist to enhance the performance of the members. So we're fortunate to have technical partners within the group, of which I'm the Managing Director of FBC Manby Bowdler Solicitors. But you can see the other ones there: Engineering Technology Group, Boramat, Hexagon, Goering, BDO and In-Comm. So they provide their services and skills to members on a sort of ad hoc basis. And through webinars like these, and are always available to help with projects that you've got on the go or prototyping. You just need to ask. In terms of benefits of the group, so you do get regular content and information from the technical partners, chance to attend briefings. We provide a full legal review of your business, which at the moment, as you can imagine, is very popular with businesses sorting out their sort of the wills and powers of attorneys or their contracts. You get discounts on more than 100 courses through In-Comm, and we've got a chance to talk to Paul about that in a moment. We do help you access grants, funding opportunities, support with the apprenticeship recruitment, seminar programs like today, and as I previously mentioned, access to prototyping capability. If you do have any questions before I hand over to Paul, so if you do have any questions, then please just enter them in the chat function at the bottom of the screen. We've had some in already, so Paul, be prepared. And on that note, I will hand over to you.
Thanks, Neil, and thanks for the introduction to the webinar and the TMG group. I think it's always good to be reminded about what the TMG group does. And the amount of members that we've got and the technical partners and all the good work they do kind of day to day and the support they offer to the companies. I'm going to talk about two topics today, about the two government schemes that are currently available for companies to access. I'm going to introduce In-Comm a little bit and then go into those two schemes. And hopefully in two short presentations, a bit of a nutshell of what the two schemes can offer and what they do for companies. And then if you've got any questions, then yeah, feel free to ask them at the end. And I've read a couple in which Neil will do as well. So hopefully I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that's okay. Okay. Neil, can you all see that?
Yeah, very good.
So as I said, the main topic for the webinar is we're going to look at introducing apprenticeships and growing your skills base. And we're going to look at doing that through the two schemes that are available at the moment that have been launched recently off the back of COVID. So we're going to talk a little bit to begin with about In-Comm and what we do. So In-Comm Training and Business Services. First of all, quality, often outstanding, that badge of approval that everyone strives for within the education industry. So hard to get and even harder to keep, something that we shout very loudly about. It's a stamp of approval within the education sector. We've got our 3 world-class training centres, kind of HQ in Aldridge, and then Bridgnorth and Shrewsbury, the 2 MCMT sites. So historically, kind of running within the West Midlands, covering those areas, those counties. But since COVID, we've instantly become national, kind of, due to remote and virtual delivery. It's allowed us to deliver some of the courses and the apprenticeships through Zoom or Microsoft Teams. So immediately we can have a slightly bigger reach with our training, without diluting the quality. We've got 3 streams in terms of what we look after from In-Comm. So first and foremost is apprenticeships. So we deliver over 20 different apprenticeships to all sectors, really, but primarily engineering and manufacturing, but then things that support them, things like health and safety and business admin. And then our commercial courses, so from our mandatories, things like first aid and IOSH and forklift truck training, to some of the softer skills, so leadership, communication, presentation skills, and then some of the technical improvements like CNC training or MIG and TIG welding. And then business consultancy, so working with companies to find solutions for what they need. So doing a training plan, doing an organisation needs analysis to kind of grow and give them a training matrix to plan out the training for the year. We work with about 450 companies, which is growing, and often a lot of repeat business, which is great. We like to work closely with companies and make sure we're doing what we say on the tin, so providing quality. And then lastly is trying to find the best funding opportunities to make sure that not only is the training being delivered, but it's also being done at a good cost or free of charge, with different schemes that are available through the LEP and the WMCA, West Midlands Combined Authority. So that's In-Comm Training in a nutshell. Obviously, very proud to be offered outstanding and a family-run firm, great values, good ethos. So I'm going to go on to talk about the 2 schemes. So the first scheme that we're going to look into is the new Kickstart Scheme, released in September and looking to get off the ground shortly. So I'm going to go through kind of some of the rules and what the Kickstart Scheme is about for those of you that haven't heard about it or have heard about it, but maybe don't know quite enough about it to want to get involved. And then what In-Comm can do in terms of getting involved. So the Kickstart Scheme is a big £2 billion government scheme, which has been designed to create some jobs for young people. So it's a fully funded 6-month work placement for 16 to 24-year-olds, where people can go and get themselves a job at a company, and the company don't have to supply the wages. That's been totally funded by the government. And then obviously at the end of the 6 months, it's up to the employers and the employees whether that's the end of it and they've had someone work for them for 6 months and that person's been paid and got some experience as well, or whether they continue and they find themselves a new role or the same role within the company. So as I said, the scheme was launched in September, and really it's going to be kickstarting in November, and the scheme will run to the end of next year at the moment. So who knows what will happen depending on what happens with COVID, where that scheme's extended. But in a brief, that's what the scheme's about. So it's just designed around giving companies the chance to take on new people without having to support the wages during this tough time, and giving young people the chance to get to work because of the scheme that's supporting them. So where In-Comm will come in is 2 elements really. We're going to support companies and try and educate companies about the scheme. A lot of our staff know a lot about it and on hand to kind of pick up the phone and answer the questions about it. But as part of that scheme, the companies get some funding to do some training alongside training providers. And that's where we come in really. So we're going to work with the companies, and once the people are in place, we're then looking at getting these young people a level 1 qualification. So not only do they get that 6 months of work and the experience within a company, they come out with a formal qualification. So depending on what role they've gone into, they're the 3 level 1s that we're going to be running. So performing engineer operations, so general using some lathes, being safe in an engineering environment, working on shop floors, working safely, handling manual handling tools. They do them over a week, so they come in for a week to the centre and get this level 1 qualification. If they're in the offices, so if they're doing the business administration role, the level 1 looks after a bit of data input, working in an office environment, a bit of word processing, so some basic office tools to give them confidence, as well as the qualification. And then an introduction to warehouse level 1. So that's looking at general hygiene around a warehouse, how to handle goods safely, working in a warehouse environment, communicating with a team. So all really good skills that if at the end of the 6 months, that's the end of the job role, they've got this qualification, they've got some experience, and above all, they've gained some really good skills that they can take forward, hopefully, into the same role or into another role. Okay, the rules. Always the bit that confuses people. Are we eligible? Who's it for? What do I have to do? So again, in a nutshell, there's the rules for the Kickstart scheme. If you go on the government website, there's obviously quite a few bits and bobs to read, but that's it condensed really. So the job placements must be for new jobs. So we're looking at taking on new people into new roles. The universal credits, so the people we're taking on, the young people, must have been on universal credit for a minimum of 3 months. And the job must be 25 hours a week for 6 months. So the people we're taking on, they must be paid a minimum of 25 hours per week for 6 months. Paid at minimum wage for their age group. So obviously we're looking at 16 to 24. So whatever the minimum wage is aligned to that age group. And then we're looking for the jobs. They shouldn't require extensive training before the placement. So they're able to start in the roles, hit the ground running, and then gain that little bit of training from the company about what they do on site, but also then working with the training provider to give them that formal qualification and that little bit of training. So over those 3 slides, that kind of takes you through what the Kickstart scheme is all about. As I said, it's running now. You can register now, and it's running up until December next year. So again, looking at the heading of the webinar, so apprenticeships and growing your skills base, and really looking at these 2 schemes. We're going to look next at the second scheme and that little bit of funding supporting apprenticeships currently, and explaining that, and a little bit of myth busting on apprenticeships in terms of what's true and what's not. So the first one is generally apprenticeships are for young people. It's not the case at all. 16 plus all the way through can do an apprenticeship, and believe me, if you come, I'm sat in In-Comm Aldridge currently, headquarters, all ages being delivered to. So typically the engineering, manufacturing, our bread and butter ones, yeah, they are for kind of school leavers or younger people under 25 generally on those. But because we deliver 24 apprenticeships at In-Comm, and as I said earlier, the management, the ILMs, the business improvement, the health and safety, we see a massive cross-section of people, either because they want to themselves, upskill themselves, CPD, trying to better themselves, maybe didn't do as well at school and they want to gain some new qualifications, want to gain new skills for a job they're in. We see all ages doing apprenticeships. Another myth is that you can't work when you do them, or you have to work when you're doing them. The apprenticeships are, you work while you're gaining qualifications. So if you're a young person coming out of school, yeah, it'll be maybe more heavily loaded at the beginning. You will train more than you work to begin with, generally. But then for maybe other people doing the management ones, they're doing their full-time job, and then they're still working alongside the training providers to gain the qualifications. So they're able to still do their function, go to work, do a great job for their companies, and whilst gaining new skills, which hopefully gives them the chance for doing their job better, more efficiently, or even moving into more senior roles. So the last myth, businesses are not taking on apprenticeships, as I put there. Businesses are taking on apprentices at the moment. It's not grounded to a halt. It's not stopped because of Brexit or COVID. People are still taking on people and growing their team, bringing succession planning to life. And it is very vibrant. Obviously, it's been tough, but there's still lots of job roles out there. People are still being brave by taking people on and supporting young people. And I think it's just really important to kind of get rid of the myths around apprenticeships. I think often the word apprenticeship can put people off, especially as you're getting older. You think it's going to be 16, 17-year-olds, and it's not. So we're going to look at the other scheme, which is the new government support around taking on new apprentices, young people, which if you've taken on apprentices, I'm sure you'll be very familiar with the funding around that and how it works. But then there's been some new support again off the back of COVID for taking on apprentices. So if you take on a 16 to 18-year-old, it was always £1,000 grant for taking on that for that young person, and the government have bolstered that currently by adding another £2,000. It's £3,000 in total for taking on a 16 to 18-year-old. For 19 to 24 years of age, there was never the funding support for that age, but now the government will give £2,000 to companies who are willing to support 19 to 24-year-olds. And then 25 plus, it's £1,500 to companies for taking on those age groups, which is fantastic. And again, it's been one of this support has helped keep the apprenticeship routes and pathways going over the last 6 months. This new funding at the moment is apprentices taken on until the 21st of January 2021, which is great. So 4 or 5 more months currently with the scheme running, and we don't know what's going to happen after that, but hopefully there'll still be lots of support available. In terms of getting the money, the bit that everyone wants to know about, so after 90 days, 3 months on programme, half of the money comes, and then after 365 days on programme, the rest of the cash, the half comes. And that's a drip feed of the funds just to stop people, I guess, taking on apprentices and having all the money up front and then not seeing through the course or the apprenticeship. And then utilising that money. The money ultimately is the company's to spend and normally spends on some uniforms or supporting the wages for the first 3 or 4 months, or some additional training to support travel costs. Whatever's needed, it's for the companies to support that apprentice in whichever way they see fit. So that's the government support in a nutshell for the new apprenticeships. So they are the 2 schemes. Hopefully clear if you didn't know about them at all. If you did, I think it's always good to have it in bullet points, so it's very clear in terms of, yeah, we want to do that one, or and know what you're getting into, eyes open, before you go into these schemes. But like I said at the beginning, In-Comm as a provider, lots of our staff know lots about the 2 schemes, so we're always going to be on hand to offer support even after the webinar. If there's any questions now, we can answer them, or going forwards as you start to want to take an interest in one of the 2, we can help you further. So that's the 2 schemes. I'm going to go back to Neil, who, if there's any questions from kind of the shop floor, or if there's some questions that we've already had in. I'm just going to try and stop my screen sharing. Stop share.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Paul.
Yes.
Good overview into those two schemes. The Kickstarter one's only been around for 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think end of September. Well, yeah, now really it's been launched. Yeah. So I think it's going to kick off at the beginning of November, really.
Yeah. Okay. So I've got a question for you then. So we've got an apprentice with you at the minute who's in our finance team.
Okay.
So actually providing training for them, whatever, is doable because we're a professional services business. But how are you balancing that where you've got apprentices that are in manufacturing businesses? How are they coming on site for training? How have you managed that through everything, all the fun we've had?
So there's a bit of a timeline. Initially, doors were closed, and then in June, doors reopened, and the learners are working in bubbles and engineering manufacturing. Obviously, to begin with, it was virtual delivery and getting through their theory and trying to get ahead with that, and now back into practical. But yeah, we're on site. They're working safely in bubbles. Fortunately, the way In-Comm's set up, we've got a lot of machines, and people only work on their own machines, so that's been working well. But then from a theory side, they're working virtually, so they're logging on to Microsoft Teams and cracking through their theory, and the support from the tutors has been fantastic. So obviously, like you say, from professional services, they're quite used to maybe virtual delivery or not being at the centre very often because they're in day-to-day roles.
Yeah.
Engineering, manufacturing, you don't learn without having a go. So it was important that we got the learners back in safely. We've got big centres. It's quite easy to distance ourselves. So at the moment it's running smoothly, and as long as we're allowed to keep our doors open, that's the way that we're going to keep running it.
Yeah, brilliant. Laura, have we had any other questions?
Yes, hopefully my microphone is now working. But yeah, Paul, something that's come through from one of our delegates is in terms of the Kickstart scheme, how do you actually register for the scheme? What's the process?
That's a good question. The best way is to go through us, so we can do an expression of interest form. That is actually on our website, so companies can go do it themselves. It is really simple, so anyone who went on there would be able to do it in 30 seconds, and then that gets the ball rolling and we can kind of take over from there. But if not, they just contact us and we can just get their details and do it for them. It's a very short process to begin with to actually start the ball rolling. So two options really: either get in touch with myself or any of our advisors at In-Comm, or just jump on the website, and it's on there, and they can fill out an expression of interest form there.
I think that's an important point, because the Kickstarter scheme, so if you want to apply directly, you've got to be taking more than 30 individuals, which is a hell of a lot. So what I like about In-Comm's approach is that you're acting as an aggregator almost, aren't you? So members or any, you don't have to be members, but you can have one or two, and collectively then, which is the strength of being in the training and manufacturing group, collectively you can go to the government and say, well, I've got 45, but they're placed across 35 businesses or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. That's where, like you say, the strength of it really, with strength in numbers. So we're trying to get many companies as we can to get engaged with it. It's a great scheme. And we'll support from thereafter.
Yeah. And the apprentices side, you touched on the fact that most people think apprentices are young people. So I've got a 17-year-old who's thinking of doing an apprenticeship, but they're not, are they? They're if I've got a manager that needs some accounts training, then they can do an apprenticeship in accounts, can't they?
Yeah. Yeah, very much a simple answer. Yeah, it's available. The funding is, so yes, you can do it, and the funding is the same. Apart from 16 to 18, where it's fully funded, after that, it's all 95% funded. So whether it's 19 years of age or 50 years of age, doing a management apprenticeship and learning some management skills, it's all funded by the government. And I don't think, especially at the moment where we're trying to support the skills gap and people still getting into careers, I don't see that changing. If anything, it'll be more schemes to help people get onto the apprenticeship ladder. And I think it'll become more popular. I think people want to do more apprenticeships, work, earn, learn. It's a good blend for people to get into, and often then get into companies where they feel part of something while they're still gaining their quals. So yeah, anyone can do it, and the funding's there for anyone to do as well.
Okay. Any further questions, Laura, or is that?
No, I think that's all that we've had.
Okay. Paul, thanks very much for joining us this afternoon and taking us through both the Kickstarter programme and the apprenticeship scheme. And thank you to the delegates for joining us today. You'll be able to watch this back once it's published online through the TMG website. And I look forward to welcoming you to the next one. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Neil.
Thanks.
See you all.